Hi, it's Hans at ahappierman.com. Today's topic is weight training limiting factors. Sunday morning, I'm heading up to see my mom briefly, give her, the safe way, right? Anyway, the weight training. I've talked about the weight training many times in videos like this, and I have articles on my website, ahappierman.com, and it's my favorite activity to do. It's of extreme value to all men, especially even aging men, and people. Women get enormous benefits from it too, but there are limiting factors and issues surrounding the weight training that I just don't think that your bodybuilding magazines, your health and fitness magazines, your big YouTube sites, and the people who make a living about it, they don't really talk about it very much. You can probably understand why, because their living is based on you becoming, buying their magazines, subscribing to their sites, buying their products, buying their programs, buying whatever, right? Advice. But what I'm saying is they are always coming from the point of view of this constant weightlifting. It's a massively huge part of your life. Drop everything else to do it, and go hell bent on it all the time, and it's just not typically doable for most people over long periods of time to be so focused on it. That's why I think you're better off trying to approach it like I approach it, as an addition to life, but not life. It's a thing you do to improve your life, to make it better in a couple of different ways, to enhance your life and make it better than it is, and trying not to make it worse. So that's why I kind of wanted to talk about these limiting factors a little bit. So let's say the biggest limiting factor of weight training is you kind of need to be doing it all the time, most of the year, and for years and years and years on end. It's got to be a thing you do. You would need to schedule time, and then by scheduling time for it and the recovery and the preparation, you would have to unschedule other things. So the time element. For example, when I started lifting weights when I was 18, a senior in high school, right after football started. We didn't even get weights in my high school until after my darn football was over. If we would have had the weights 5 or 6 years earlier, man, would have really had a great high school football experience. But whatever. But yeah, I really took to it right afterwards. I really liked it. I didn't play basketball my senior year. I just, lifted weights after school. Instead of going to basketball practice, I went to the weight room, and I could control. I didn't go, all the time. I just went as I wanted, and 3, 4 times a week. There was a couple of cool friends who lifted too. They weren't in basketball, and we kind of palled around and had a good time and joked around and pushed ourselves, and we got strong and muscular. That's for darn sure. It was extremely effective at that young age. Extremely effective. And then as I continued, when I went to college, the first year in college, the college I went to had just a terrible little weight room. It was worse than the one I had in high school, actually. But the second year, somebody donated a bunch of money and they built a really nice weight room. And this weight room was great at that school. I lifted weight for like the 4 more years I was there. I was enjoying that weight room. It was really, really good. A lot of good equipment, enough space. It was very inspiring because there were, big guys and built guys lifting there, and a few really good-looking gals too once in a while. And it was fun. And that lifting was a very good experience there. And I did that for college, and then somewhere I took a semester off. I went to a different town and worked for 8 or 9 months, and then I joined a gym in that town, and that was a very good gym too, kind of that mid-80s bodybuilding style. And there was a couple of really big bodybuilding guys there, very, very inspiring to weight train around them. Actually, there was probably 2, I can remember 2 big bodybuilding guys, and then I can remember 3 really, really powerful guys that weight trained. And I just weight trained together, and those guys were like, the 3 were partners and the 2 were partners, and they all, it was fun to train around motivated guys like that. And there were some good looking gals in there too, which is nice. I like those beautiful bodybuilding type girls. Who doesn't, right? Who doesn't? And then I went back to school another year, and then I went to a different college for grad school, and they just had this horrible gym. It was just pathetic. And this was a very wealthy private school, and I was expecting just this great gym, and it was just horrible. I went there like on a free ride to get my graduate degree, or try to, but it was just horrible. So I had to go, and at that point I was in a big city, and I joined a big bodybuilding gym, and this gym was just awesome. Hands down the best gym I've ever been in, except for maybe the Golds in Southern California. It was kind of modeled on that. It was very, very good, very inspirational. And I did that, and then I went. So the short story, right? Get to the point. I'm happier, man. I lifted weights for about 10 years, and rarely taking any serious layoffs. I'd have to take a serious layoff when I moved or when I join a new gym. So there's probably a week or 2 or maybe 3 while I'm figuring this out. But I never really took a long break from weight training in those days. Maybe, trying to think, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3, maybe 4. And that long of a break, I didn't want to tell the truth. I would have preferred to always be training in those days, because I just loved it, and it had great results. Got much more confident with the strength and the power and the leanness and the muscles, right? Made my life better. But I never took long breaks unless it was forced upon me. Maybe if I take a vacation for a week, I wouldn't lift, but I'd probably be lifting like crazy in the weeks leading up to the vacation, and then as soon as I got back, I'd get back to it. But I didn't have long layoffs. Well, then I, did what the typical guy does, is you're sexy enough to finally get the girl, and you settle down with one, and then what normally happens with the guys is they settle down with the girl, and then you do all the fiance stuff, the marriage, the house, the babies, and all your time for weight training is just gone like that. You have no time. And so when I stopped lifting, I probably lifted for a good 10 years straight. And then when I stopped, I probably stopped lifting for another 93 for about 14 or 15 years. I didn't lift at all. So what the story on that is that was a huge mistake on my part to stop lifting for that long. And I tried to get back into it here and there along those 14 years, but life was just too brutally difficult and complicated, and I don't know that I ever really scraped up an extra hour or two of free time a week to do the weight training. It just wasn't doable. So that's the biggest thing for weight training, is you need to do it consistently over your life, and you've got to somehow cut out everything that doesn't involve that you can, to have enough time. So I had a full-time job that I was working, many hours of overtime. I had a wife and 2 small children, an expensive house. They had chores around the house and stuff to do, and like constant remodeling, constant upkeep, and so I stayed active with all of that kind of stupid stuff. But remodeling your house isn't a workout like weight training. Remodeling your house is just a messy, expensive ordeal to try to get through. It isn't gonna make you muscular. It isn't gonna make you fit. It's just probably gonna make you broke. And yes, the results are nice when you do it, but for the house, they make the house look good, but you're gonna look bad and feel bad about it. So yeah, if you're a young man, somehow you got to convey to your wife that this lifting thing that you do is your priority, that your health, your fitness, your strength and muscles and power and the way you feel about yourself, that's got to be your priority. So in the system, the society, the way things are, it's going to be pretty darn hard to overcome that just for your little desires for your own life. But I would suggest you do that. So the layoffs, you don't want to take years laying off. Weeks are fine. Weeks are fine. If you get hurt, you better take some time off. If you're going on vacation, well, enjoy it. If you're working on a side project, maybe you spend 6 months remodeling your house, and then you don't weight train during that time, but then you get back to it as soon as that house is done. Right? You're starting a new business. Well, but your health, your strength, and what you gain from weight training has got to be your priority. It has to be your priority, and that's like the biggest limiting factor is the doing it consistently, weekly, monthly, yearly, for years on end, starting from whenever you started. Maybe you're starting today, and then just continue. Maybe you think about it in terms of, I'm going to lift until I die. I think that's probably the better model for this. So that's a big limiting factor, is taking too long of a layoff. Another limiting factor is you will get hurt from a combination of things. You will get hurt from the training, you will get hurt from life, and then you will, between your life and the training, you'll get hurt. One issue will exacerbate the other. So you go to a job and you hunch over the computer all day, and then you think that just because you lift weights for an hour once a week, that it's going to overcome 40 or 50 or 60 hours a week of hunching over the computer. No. No, especially if you've taken years off from the lifting. You're going to hurt from your work and life, and then the lifting will exacerbate that hurt. You'll get in accidents, you'll have issues, you'll have health problems, and the lifting will exacerbate that. Or you'll tweak yourself in the weight room, and then you'll be trying to do something else unrelated to the weights, and that will make whatever you tweaked wrong. So there's these injuries you've got to deal with. Given all these things that are wrong with it, it's hard to believe people think it's a good thing. But the problem is, if you don't lift, your life just goes down, because you don't have any strength, you don't have any muscle, you don't have any health reserves. You gotta do. So I'm just suggesting you go into this weight training with an open mind, that you're not going to be able. There will be some stresses and strains that might be injury related. I fell down on the darn ice right before my workout a couple weeks ago, nearly cracked my head. I banged my elbow, the same elbow that's been bothering me for the last 4 years. I hit on the darn pavement right on that ice, and then I scratched my hand pretty much at a pretty good pace, enough to be painful and bleeding. And that was right before the workout, and of course I laid there on the pavement kind of screaming in anger and pain, and then for quite some time actually. And then as I was laying there, I finally determined that I wasn't hurt seriously. It didn't break any bones or anything. So I got up and straggled into the weight room and tried to have a good workout. And I did have a good workout, except for my elbow. The elbow that hurt more, and I couldn't do quite as much as before. I couldn't stress it as much. And then my hand, where the hand is scratched, that was so much pressure on the bar, that wasn't good. So the hurting, the injuries are a huge limiting factor, and you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself thinking you're going to be able to just lift consistently forever without getting hurt. You almost have to assume that you will at some point. You're going to take precautions to not get hurt. Do that, okay? But I'm just saying that life is going to throw you some curves, and you would want to be adapt to them and get back to things. So I hurt. I was going. A few years back, the lifting was going great for me, but then I did. My body weight was down and my strength was up. I did some squats. I didn't collar the squats properly. Shifted. It hurt my neck, and I spent a year trying to deal with the aftermath of this pretty serious injury, and I'm still dealing with it to this day. And this is what happens to people: is you get hurt, injured some fashion, and it's not, these injuries, they don't heal like in a couple of days. You got to think in terms of months and years and maybe decades. It's very, very annoying, but that's just the reality of the injuries you may suffer. And that was like I was over exuberant at that time, doing too much, pushing myself kind of unmercifully. So I think I've talked about, to not do that, to not go the limiting factors. Don't think that because you use a pro bodybuilder's routine that you're going to be able to look like a pro bodybuilder. Probably not. You would probably take that pro bodybuilder's routine, cut that in half, and then maybe cut that in half. That's probably a more doable routine for you. And then always pushing either more workouts, heavier weights, more sets. You've got to kind of listen to your body and maybe program in some breaks, because that's a recipe to get hurt over time. So yeah, those are kind of the biggest limiting factors I think there are. Is you got to be doing it for your life, and you've got to build in a few layoffs or expect that you're going to get nicked and beat up from time to time through life and the training. Maybe another limiting factor is just the feelings surrounding it. I get a little bit anxiety thinking about my workout, because I'm always, if I'm trying to push a little bit heavier weight this time than last time, it gives you a little bit of fear in that day before and the morning of, and thinking, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. Right? So you have that kind of a anxiety and fear, and you think, well, I probably can't do it, so I'm not going to train, right? So it's in your mind. It's in your mind. The other thing is, you know that when you're there, you don't feel that it's going to feel very, very uncomfortable. There's going to be a stress and a strain while you're there. You're going to worry about, getting hurt while you're there. You're going to worry about everything surrounding it. If I go, is the gym going to be packed? And am I going to have to rush through my workout? When I go, is it going to be a storm on the way home? I won't make it home. All of this mind work, these are limiting factors for the quality of your workout, and even if you'll continue to go. So I don't like it when people sugarcoat the weight training as the be all and end all. It's a helpful thing for your life, extremely good for you, but give those limiting factors a little bit of thought. Be realistic in your goals. Be careful. Set reasonable expectations on yourself, and enjoy your lifting. All for now.